again. So, hello, all right, here we go again. So, hello, I am Teacher Nikki. I was gonna share my screen, but I really don't like how that looked at all. So what I will do is I will type some things here, and then I have a link in. All right, here we go again. So, hello, I am Teacher Nikki. All right, here we go again. So, hello, I am Teacher Nikki. I was gonna share my screen, but I really don't like how that looked at all. So what I will do is I will type some things here, and then I have a link in the description of this so that you can go to follow along in the Google presentations. So let's get started. We're talking about how to teach beginner students. And if you see me looking around, it's because I'm going to be looking at my presentation here. And I will also try to use my whiteboard or just type in the comments. And if my computer moves, it's because I have it stacked on a little stand, and sometimes when I type, it moves a little, just to forewarn you. All right, so let's get started talking about tips for teaching beginner English learners. Thanks everyone for being here. We're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about TPR. If you don't know what TPR is, it's total physical response, and there's a couple ways to use that. We're going to talk about using simple language with beginners, using repetition, and how to extend the lesson if it comes to that point. So first, let's talk about using TPR with beginners. We're going to start from how you would go through the whole lesson. So from your welcome and introductions, and how to use TPR when you're actually teaching. So really you are teaching, obviously, right when you start the lesson. So right from the beginning, when you're welcoming the student, you want to show that TPR. So you can just say, hello, my name is, and then it's really good if you have a visual that you can show your beginner. So my name is Teacher Nikki, and then you're able to show them what you're talking about. And if you want to get their name, you're going to go, what's your name? And you're going to cup your ears so that you can hear them. So right away you are setting the tone and letting that student know that you're going to move slowly with them, that they're going to be able to see your body language to communicate with you, and they're going to feel so much more comfortable because by using all those gestures and TPR, body language, then you are going to make them just relax because they understand you then. Just imagine it this way, okay? If I say, hello, I'm Teacher Nikki, what's your name? What are they going to get from that? Just imagine a 5-year-old and they have no exposure to English, or even an adult, and they have limited exposure to English. They're going to be like, what did she just say? So let's just say, I don't know how many of you speak Spanish, but let me just show you what that feels like in another language. So I'll do it without TPR first in Spanish, and then I'll do it with TPR in Spanish so you can see. Hola, me llamo Nikki. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo te llamas tú? I couldn't even say, like, what's your name without going like this because I'm so used to doing it. So if I say it with TPR, hola, me llamo, where's my sign? Me llamo Nikki. ¿Cómo te llamas tú? And so you can see there, it just makes it a little bit easier when you're listening to another language, how that feels with the body language and without it. All right, after you have that introduction, you're going to have to start getting into teaching the student. So, and also think of your introduction as teaching, because you're exposing them to new language, even when you're saying, what's your name, hello, and things like that. But when you're really getting into the content of the lesson, the new vocabulary, you're going to want to use some body language and TPR to get the student to repeat you. So I talk about giving 0-word instructions. That means don't even say repeat. So let's just say you want to teach the word monkey. Okay? So I will show them the word. I will show with a visual, monkey, and then I will do this, monkey, and then they will start to speak, because I don't even have to say repeat. If I'm throwing in the word repeat, what's going to happen? They're going to say repeat. So you want to avoid that parroting just by giving them the words that they need. Eventually, you could introduce the word repeat once you start to see that they're comprehending. But for someone who's an absolute beginner, cut out as much language as possible. Okay, let's say you want to get them to write on the screen. So this can be a battle, and sometimes they're just not going to get it. So you have to accept where they're at, meet the student where they are at. I would show them, obviously, so I would use my whiteboard, and this is where modeling comes in. You can show them the marker, and you can just say, draw a line, or you could say, circle. These are pretty obvious. I'm sure you guys have done that before, but if they're not getting it, you got to move on. Don't get stuck on those areas where it's not working, and try to use that lesson in a different way. So if they're not understanding how to write on the screen, then just use the words in a different way. You could repeat the words, you could show them props, and then say, what is this? You know, something like that. For teaching the questions and answers, I have a couple different ways that I do that with TPR. So when you're asking a question, you first want to show a conversation. You want to model it with your props. So I just am grabbing what I have right in front of me. So I have two little things here, and I would say, hi, Green. What's your name? My name is Green. What's your name? And then I might show it to the student, and I'll say, what's your name? What's your name? And that way you're incorporating both visuals, and when you ask the question, what's your name, you have to have that question look. You really want to dramatize it, exaggerate it, so that they know it's a question. And if they repeat you, it's not the end of the world. They will get it eventually. Don't worry, you guys. Okay, so so what is the real TPR that was researched by James Asher? He's a professor that researched about language learning, acquisition, and he researched babies. So he saw that babies would respond physically when their parents would talk to them. And that's where TPR originated. Now we're using TPR in a lot of variety of ways, some of which I just showed you. But the original TPR is like you're giving a command, and then the person is supposed to respond to it with a physical response. So let's just say, sit. Okay, so sit is total physical response. Then you say, stand. Then when the student does it, they are responding with a physical movement. That's the original TPR. So you want to incorporate that with any verbs that are action verbs, like run. Come on, run, run, run. Walk. Let's do this. So that's the real original TPR, the OG. But again, everything else, when you're giving instructions, when you're asking questions, you want to try to use physical movements with that as well. Okay, we're going to move on now from the TPR portion of this, and we're going to move into talking about simple language. I've already talked a little bit about it with you guys. When you are telling a student what to do that is a beginner, you don't want to say, now we're going to do this, now we're going to learn colors. Cut that out. So just say the color, show the color. So I'll just say, yellow. I didn't say repeat yellow. I didn't say this is yellow. You're taking it in steps. Blue, and then you go from there. You guys get the point. So think of 0-word instructions. They're going to know what to do just by you going like this and cupping your ear. They're going to know you want them to repeat you. So you don't have to say repeat. And then, so like I said, you want to do one word at a time, and you want to scaffold. So when I'm introducing colors, I'm not going to say, what color is it? I can't start with that with a beginner. I have to start with one word. I'll just say yellow. And then after that, I want them to say a sentence. I want them to say, it is yellow. And then after I get them to do that, then I will ask the question and I will show the props again. I will ask, what color is it? It is yellow. And then I'll ask the student, Sarah, what color is it? So say the student's name when you ask them a question. And if they're not responding, you can say, is it green? Yes or no? And that helps a lot to get a response. So sometimes you just have to get a yes or no out of them first so they get used to questions. And I'll do that a couple times, and then I'll just say, I'll throw it in there randomly. I'll say, is it green? And then they get it. Or I'll just say, what color is it? And then they understand that I'm asking a question. So you have to get them in the I don't know what word I want to use is, but you want to get them kind of accustomed to questions. So don't expect them to just start answering them right away. Say, is it green? Yes or no? Is it yellow? Yes or no? What color is it? So by the third or fourth question, then I'll ask it more like, what color is it? Where they can't answer yes or no. All right. And then, so the other thing I did, and basically it's just called modeling when you're showing them what to do. And you want to use what we call I do, we do, you do. So you're leading them up to understand what they have to do. So I do is the teacher's just showing what to do. Then you incorporate the student doing it with you. Then you try to get the student to do it on their own. Thanks for the hearts. Thanks for the likes, you guys. Okay, the next thing is repetition. So there's a few ways that I do this. Let's say we are at the point where we're asking questions. It could be as simple as like what we're talking about, what color is it? And maybe you have a page with a lot of different vocabulary on it, and they have to answer about each word. So I will write the question in a different color. I'll write the question in, let's say, red. And maybe your platform doesn't have an option to do this, so I'm sorry if this doesn't apply to you. I know all the platforms are different, but on one of the platforms where I work, you can write in different colors. So I would write the question in red, and then when the student answers, I would show the answer in a different color. And then I would try to show it right by that vocabulary word. So let's say there's 5 vocabulary words, and there's pictures with each one. So for the first word, I'll say, what color is it? And then I'll put the student's answer, it is red. It is a red book. And then I'll move the question, I'll kind of shift it over, and I'll say, what color is it? And we'll say, it's a purple pen. And I'll have that answer there. keep the answers in the same color and keep the question in that red color so that they can start to differentiate between questions and answers. The other thing that I do is I make a list of each word. So if we're talking about book, pen, chair, those types of words where they're school supplies related to school, every time the student gives me an answer, I write it somewhere like as a list so they're all together. And then we can go back and repeat those words. And then on the next page, I'll create that list again. I'll put number 1. Okay, number 1 was book. Do you know number 2? And then you're starting to get them used to not only the vocabulary, but also answering questions. And it's really, really important to repeat with beginners, because this might be the only time that they're hearing that vocabulary. We know how busy our students are, right? Our students are non-stop. They're always studying. They're always doing something. They're taking music classes. So when they're coming online with us, they might not be studying that vocabulary by themselves. So the more you can get them exposed to the same words over and over, especially with the ones who are struggling, obviously, if they already know it, you're not going to repeat it. But for those beginners, you want to keep it in their head and just bam, 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 over and over, get those words down, okay? So, that's what I have for repetition. So far, we've talked about TPR, simple language, and repetition. So the last thing I want to talk about is extension. Let's say we're talking about body parts, and what I would do is, throughout the whole lesson, let's say we have been going over each of the body parts, and maybe we have a few minutes left. So one way that I would extend the lesson, and depending on how well the student did, of course, and what their capabilities are, I would go to a blank slide, and I would start to draw the body, and then I would label it. And that would be me modeling what I want the student to do. Because next, I want the student to draw, and I want the student to be able to talk about the body that they draw. So maybe if the student is capable, I could have them start to write the word. And that's really important for beginners because they need to have that connection with the letters and to understand the spelling and everything like that. We often don't have our students working on that because maybe it's too hard for them to write on the screen, maybe we don't have time for it, but it's really important to get them to write the words, to start to understand the English, the structure of English. And then I would also, to extend the lesson, I would ask the student about what they learned. And again, it depends on how capable they are of that question, because that's a really difficult question for a beginner. But I could also do it without asking them. I would start to write the list. I would say, okay, head. And then I would write it on the screen. And then I would point to my shoulders. What was this? And then have the student, once the student says it, and then I would write it. So reviewing what they learned is an extension as well. And then just practicing in multiple ways. So if you're talking about body parts, show a monkey, show one of your stuffed animals. You're practicing in more than one way. Instead of just pointing to yourself, you're showing the animal. Or, like I said, you're drawing it. So having various ways that you practice is always good for extension as well. All right. So you guys, I see some people, Maha, Mahmoud, I'm looking at questions you guys now. How do you use simple sentences while teaching? So I did talk about that a little bit. When it's a beginner, I literally might not even say a sentence. I will just say, apple. And then I just go like this. I'm not going to say repeat apple. What is an apple? What color is it? I will just say apple. And then I'll say red apple, and I'll see if the student can say it. And then I'll just go into a sentence. So I just build up little by little. So then I'll say, it is red, or the apple is red. And then if I can, if the student's capable, I'll say, what color is it? So slowly building up to those longer sentences. But if you're gonna start speaking, just remember, keep it as simple as possible. So how do I do that? I just think about if I was learning Chinese and the teacher starts speaking to me in full sentences, I would think, oh my gosh, I don't understand that. So just try to put yourself in the student's shoes and think about if someone was speaking to you in a foreign language, how much do you want them to say? You want them to communicate very little in the beginning so you can learn word by word, step by step. And then how do you maintain using simple words while teaching to deliver the message? So basically, I feel like I did show this. I don't know what time you got here, Maha, but if you have time to go back and watch this, you're going to see just building up little by little and just always reminding myself to put myself in their shoes and how that feels when I'm hearing a foreign language and how little I understand of it. So when I keep that in mind, I just really hold back and only use what's in front of me. Basically, whatever you're seeing on your slide, try not to go beyond that. Remember those slides, those PowerPoint slides are very simple, and they're simple for a reason at that level. You have one word on a slide, one word comes out of your mouth. Then you can build up to it, though. It doesn't have to continue to be one sentence. Just show the word in various ways. Dance or something, make them interested, engage them, sing the word, say the word in a little voice, say the word in a loud voice, and then you're having fun with it and using it in multiple ways. It's not going to be boring for them. Okay, any other questions? Right now, I don't see a way for me to type on this, but we are wrapping up. If there's more questions, I will answer them, but if not, we can wrap this up. I think I did try to go live a minute ago. Any other questions? Gotta turn my volume down. Okay, I'll just say hello. I'm using my phone. But if you have any questions, type them now before I close off. I don't see any other questions coming through, but just a reminder, I have a Google presentation that went with this. There was pictures on there, there's visuals. All the notes we went through are on that presentation, so I encourage you to go and check it out. And stay in touch with me. If you have questions, message me. I would be happy to answer anything. And look forward to more communication with you guys. Hopefully do another live again in the future. See you guys. Have a great day. Happy Monday. Have a great rest of the week.